So last week on the channel, I did a video about disappointing video games that I was looking forward to for a long time and then came out and just ruined my life for a little while. Well, this week I want to do something different. I want to do video games that disappointed everyone else, but for some reason, I really enjoyed. Now, some of these might confuse some of you and make you question me as a gamer, but let me get through explaining them as best I can. The first one on this list is going to be Star Fox Adventures. I have to say the only reason I think this game was hated on so much was because it wasn't a Star Fox game, and it wasn't. It flat out wasn't. It was almost like we were lied to by this game. But it was a really great game, and I feel like if they had just taken out anything Star Fox and just made it its own thing like it initially was gonna be, it would be a really fun game that people would enjoy. I like the fact that it's Star Fox. It gives me a little bit of a added attachment to the characters because I feel like I already have a history with them and now I'm playing them in this whole different genre of game. I get that it's not a Star Fox game, but this game was never going to be a Star Fox game. So I wasn't really ever too upset or disappointed by it. I thought it was really fun, and despite whether or not it's branded as Star Fox, I feel like I would enjoy this game, and I do enjoy this game, and honestly every now and then I go back and play it again. Maybe it's just nostalgia, maybe it's blinding me, but I really like this game. So last week I talked about how disappointed I was in Devil May Cry 2. Well, something that really blew me away is that people were really disappointed by DMC. I know my friend Alpha doesn't like this game, which is fine, and it's very different. And people are, again, just like last week, allowed to not like games that others like. But for me, I thought this was an awesome job at bringing the game into 2014, 2015, whenever the game came out. It was a really great reimagining. It was a reboot, essentially. And again, like I tried talking about last week, anytime a team comes on and takes over a franchise, they're gonna wanna do it their way. I really liked the Dante they built. I loved the story. I was really engrossed in the story, actually. But beyond all of that, beyond the cosmetic look of it, the gameplay was off the wall insane. Something that I loved about the old Devil May Cries was chaining together combos, chaining together your flips, your sword moves, your throwing shit, your stabbing shit, your shooting shit, putting it all together in stylish combos, and it was honestly just a really super fun game that I think did Devil May Cry credit. Personally, but I know so many people that were upset by it, and the biggest thing they were upset by was the fact they didn't have blonde hair. But I mean, he did eventually. It was sort of the story of how he became him, and a part of him is his white hair. And it was the story of how he got that white hair. And they made a joke about it at the start of the game. People were pissed off about it, but I thought it was hilarious. I don't know. I thought it was a really good job, personally. Here's one that's gonna really confuse a lot of you, and honestly, it still confuses me. It honestly does to this day. And maybe it was just my situation at the time. I had just got set up in a new house. I had this nice, awesome couch, this nice new TV, this nice new surround system. I was just loving playing games at this time. And one of the first games that had just come out and I was excited to play was Walking Dead Survival Instinct. And I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, read all the comics, watched the show, played the other game, so I wanted to at least try this. Hey, it had Norman Reedus, it had his brother guy. What could go wrong? The game isn't great by any means. The game is disappointing, but I enjoyed it. It became really repetitive nearly halfway through the game, and I actually didn't end up finishing it. But I invested like 6 hours into the game, I think, and I enjoyed everything that I played up until that point. Comparing it to Telltale's Walking Dead, it's piece of shit, it's terrible. But on its own right, it's fun for a little while. The gameplay isn't terrible. I really enjoyed getting Daryl's crossbow, shooting zombies in the face, walking up to them and pulling out my bolts, sticking them back in and shooting them again, or even just pumping their stomach full of bolts, walking up and pulling them all out and then shooting them again. I don't know. There was something fun in that. There was something fun in the creepiness of it. It wasn't terrible, it just wasn't good. But for some reason, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the time I played with it, and judge me appropriately. You can seriously judge me, it's appropriate. I know way too many people that don't like Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I won't talk about this one for too long. Melee, okay, is a better technical fighter, absolutely. But Brawl introduced a lot of really fun things, a lot of really cool characters. You have Snake, you have the orbs that you can now smash and get the finishes, and I thought a lot of the finishes were really cool and a really cool addition. It added something to the game. Whenever you're playing with a bunch of friends and that ball pops up, shit's about to go down. The fact that everyone goes from like all this strategic fighting to holy shit, let's get this orb, I don't know, it added something to the game I really liked, but it kind of lost the technical standpoint of it, because even taking all the items out and just having a straight fight. You still have that slipping mechanic, I'm pretty sure that's what ruined it, where there's like a 2% chance your character will just slip and fall. I don't even know why they thought that was a good idea to add into the game. You will literally be trying to fight or run and you will just fall over, and it's such a disadvantage. It's such a random thing to put into a fighter, and it ruined the technicality of it. And a lot of people were disappointed in it and refused to play it, and they still say Melee is the best version of the game because of that. But that one and even the new one, I think, are both really fun games, and I am not disappointed in them in the slightest. But then again, I don't go to competitions and try and compete, and I don't consider myself the best player, so maybe that's why people were disappointed. But hey, I like Smash Brothers Brawl Melee, the first one, and Wii U. It could just be because I don't get offended by Zelda almost ever. That's a lie. I hate Spirit Tracks. That's a disappointing game right there, Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass. Sorry, don't hate me for that. I loved Skyward Sword. I don't know what everyone hated so bad about it. I get that it reused levels halfway through the game, but it did change them, and it felt like you were doing something very different in those worlds. There were still beautiful worlds. There were still fun places to visit. I wasn't burnt out on those. I wasn't there long enough to get burnt out. Yeah, you had to beat that same thing a few times, but there was a point to that. There was a story to that. There was repetition intentionally in that, but it changed each time to the point where it gave you a little bit more. It gave you a little bit more of the story, a little bit more of the atmosphere. It really wasn't a bad game at all, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the humor. I enjoyed the fact that I was playing a new Zelda game, and I thought it was a lot of fun, a lot of things to do and explore. It was a really interesting mix of Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time almost. And I honestly feel like it was a great addition to Zelda titles. Is it the strongest title? No. Is it way better than most games on the Wii? Way better than most games that come out in general these days? Yes. So I never really understood the huge backlash on it, other than the fact that it wasn't as strong as other titles. But you can let me know down below why you hated it. I just don't think it's that bad. This is an interesting one. It's kind of a small one, not many people have played, but Gone Home got a lot of hate, and I thought it was a really fun game that I recommend you trying if you haven't already. I played that game not knowing what to expect, and I was scared the entire game, and I'm a little bitch, and I've made that very clear on my channel a few times, and I get scared easily, but I was on edge the whole game. It's probably more appropriate. I was on edge, I was tensed up, and I was worried about what was going to happen, but the game never ever gave me a reason to feel that way. It never tried to make me feel like I should be scared. It never did or said or implied anything to make me feel that way, and yet I played the entire game that way, and then I got to the end and I realized this wave of relief that that wasn't a scary game. It wasn't designed to be that way. I think you're supposed to feel that way from like they wanted that to happen, but they did it in a way where they didn't have to try to make you feel that way. You just made yourself feel that way. And it was really clever, and the story that it told as I was going throughout the game and the picture that it put together, it was fun. I loved the story. I thought it was really clever, and the fact that I was made to feel scared with nothing to be scared of was something that I'd never experienced before. Fable 3. People were disappointed in Fable 2 because it took Fable 1 such a great game, and Fable 2 sort of dulled it down, took out a lot of the customization, took out a lot of the things you used to be able to do as far as like armor and abilities, and sort of like simplified it. But it was fun, and it was a lot of, you could explore a lot. This is 2 of them. But Fable 2 was fun. It was really fun. There was so much exploring to redo, so much story. There was such a rich land, and the gameplay was super fun. I played that for hours and hours and hours, and the third one dumbed it down a little bit again. The only thing that was really disappointing was the ending sucked. The way they wrapped that game up, that's not how you finish a game, people. That is not how games work. The ending ruined the entire game for me. It's not like the last hour, but the way that it plays out sucks. But the game before then was pretty much just a little bit dumbed down version of 2, but still really fun. I had a lot of fun playing this co-op. I have a lot of fun exploring the worlds of Fable. I have a lot of fun creating and using spells, and I don't know, it's almost like a Zelda, but with more technical RPG elements to it, but at the same time, it's just like a Microsoft Zelda a little bit. I don't know, I really liked it. I had no issue with it until right at the end, but everyone seems to just flat out hate it. I don't, I think it's good. Brutal Legend is a really great game. really great game with a lot of like celebrity voices like Jack Black and Tim Curry. Tim Curry does a great job, so does Jack Black. Ozzy Osbourne, a lot of great rock and roll references. The world they built was so unique and interesting. The gameplay was really fun. It's a really fun beat 'em up type game, a lot of customization, a lot of really great jokes, like the humor and the self-referencing humor and breaking the fourth wall, or even just the jokes they tell, the humor in that game in general was funny and great. It's Jack Black. It's Jack Black humor. It's great. And the story in the world they built was really fun. The only thing that was disappointing about that game is right near the end, it shifted and became like an RTS, which again was fun, but you sort of got used to something and then they tried to change it on you, and that was really confusing and kind of made the ending a little disappointing. But overall, it wasn't a deal breaker for me, and it's a game that I do go back to every now and then. It reminds me of, it's a Tim Schafer game. It reminds me of like Suda 51 games. It reminds me of just that weird, wacky, fun, different. It's just different, and if you haven't tried that game, you need to give that one a shot. It's a hidden gem for sure. I'm gonna end this one on something possibly controversial. I'm not sure how you feel about it. People got really upset with Resident Evil 5 because it was an action game and it wasn't a horror game. To some extent, I was disappointed as well. I mean, it wasn't what I was used to in Resident Evil, and at first I was like, this is not a Resident Evil game. And just like Star Fox, it's not a Resident Evil game, it's not a Star Fox game, but it's still something really, really, really fun. And especially and pretty much solely if you play it 2 players. To this day, I honestly believe it is one of, if not the best 2-player co-op experience you can have on the 360 and the PS3. I loved co-op games. I grew up with a lot of friends from high school, and we played co-op games all the time, and whenever we wanted to play something, we always looked at our libraries and looked at games online like, we're out. We've played the 5 to 6 great co-op games for the system, the really fun ones. We always ended up going back to Resident Evil 5. It's, again, one of the best co-op experiences you can have on that generation of systems. And honestly, it's a really fun game in general. The gameplay is tight, everything runs super smooth, it's great kicking zombie ass. It's just not Resident Evil. It's not. But it's fun. It's really, really, really fun. I finished that game 3 or 4 times over on all difficulties. I did that game in one sitting when I was younger. I was like maybe like 17, 18. Me and my friend Michael sat down and we, it's one of our best memories. We played it in one sitting. It was like 8 hours, and by the end, when Chris was smashing that boulder, we were like ready to pass out. We were so done, but we just had to get through it. So it's one of my favorite memories of video games in general, so I cannot hate that game. Resident Evil 6, however, I played that co-op with the same friend, and it just, I don't know what it was. I didn't mind it too much, but then when it hit single player, I was out. When you get down to the last chapter, I didn't bother finishing that. I was in it for the co-op at that point because I didn't find it too fun. It was nowhere near as fun as the 5th one. I know that's weird because a lot of people prefer the 6th one, maybe because it became solo at the end, but it just wasn't my personal cup of tea. But still not a bad co-op experience. And that's it. That's my 10 games that everyone else found disappointing, but I, for some whatever messed up reason, enjoyed. If you didn't see my video last week of games that disappointed me, make sure to check that out. There'll be a link at the end of this video. If you liked any of these games just like I did, remember to hit that like button. If you hated them and you have no idea what I'm talking about, remember to hit that like button. Leave a comment down below with games that other people hate, but for some reason you just absolutely love. Subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.